Good day everyone. So for today's video, we will be tackling about culture, the meaning, characteristics, and its functions. So to start with, what exactly is the meaning of culture? Sometimes an individual is described as a highly cultured person, meaning thereby that person in question has certain features such as his speech, manner, and taste for literature, music, or painting which distinguish him from others. Culture, in this sense, refers to certain personal characteristics of an individual. However, this is not the sense in which the word culture is used and understood in social sciences. Sometimes, culture is used in popular discourse to refer to a celebration or an evening of entertainment, as when one speaks of a cultural show. In this sense, a culture is identified with aesthetics or the fine arts such as dance, music, or drama. This is also different from the technical meaning of the word culture. Culture is used in a special sense in anthropology and sociology. It refers to some of human beings' life ways, their behavior, beliefs, feelings, and thought. It connotes everything that is acquired by them as social beings. Culture has been defined in a number of ways. There is no consensus among sociologists and anthropologists regarding the definition of culture. And here are some writers' definition of culture. Starting with Edward Tyler, who defined culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. And we have Sutherland and Woodward say, if culture exists only where there is communication, then the content of culture can be ideas or symbol patterns. Culture is then an invisible and touchable material, things or objects. Next, we have Malinowski, in which he defines culture as the handiwork of man and the medium through which he achieves his ends. He included inherited artifacts, implements, and consumer goods, and social structure within his definition of culture. Another definition of culture by MacLever is that culture is an expression of our nature in our modes of living and our thinking. It occurs in our literature, in religion, in recreation, and as well as enjoyment. For E. A. Hobel, culture is the sum total of integrated learned behavior patterns, which are characteristics of members of a society and which are therefore not the result of biological inheritance. For Bursted, culture is the complex whole that consists of everything we think and do and have as members of society. So, it's very obvious that Bursted and Edward Taylor has almost the same definition of culture. And then we have to proceed now to Anderson and Parker, and they define culture as the total content of the social, biosocial, and psychosocial universe man has produced and the socially created mechanisms through which these social products operate. Let us proceed now to the characteristics of culture. And when we speak of characteristics, it refers to the feature or quality or the attribute of what culture has. The next characteristic is culture is abstract. When we speak of culture, it is conceptual or theoretical. Culture exists in the minds or habits of the members of society. And as we all know, culture is a shared of ways of doing and as well as thinking. These are degrees of visibility of cultural behavior, ranging from regularized activities of persons to their internal reasons for so doing. So, in other words, we cannot see culture as such, we can only see human behavior because people acts the said culture. This behavior occurs in regular pattern fashion and it is called culture. The next characteristic is culture is a pattern of learned behavior. The definition of culture indicated that the learned behavior of people is patterned. Each person's behavior often depends upon some particular behavior of someone else. The point is that, as a general rule, behaviors are somewhat integrated or organized with the related behaviors of other persons. So, the general rule, it was said by famous philosopher Confucius. He said that do not do unto others which you don't want others do unto you. So if you are mean to someone, then someone will be mean to you. And if you are good to someone, someone will also be good to you. So that's why it's called patterned. Number 4, culture is the products of behavior. Culture learnings are the products of behavior. As the person behaves, there occur changes in him. He acquires the ability to swim, to feel hatred towards someone, or to sympathize with someone. They have grown out of these previous behaviors. Number 5, culture includes attitudes, values, and knowledge. There is a widespread error in the thinking of many people who tend to regard the ideas, attitudes, and notions which they have as their own. It is easy to overestimate the uniqueness of one's own attitudes and ideas. When there is agreement with other people, it is largely unnoticed. Yes, but when there is a disagreement or differences, one is usually conscious to it. Your differences, however, may also be cultural. For example, suppose you are a Catholic and the other person is a Protestant. So there are differences of attitude, values, and knowledge of the said religion. Number 6, culture also includes material objects. Man's behavior results in creating objects. Men were behaving when they have made these things. To make these objects required numerous and various skills which human beings gradually built up through the ages. So if a single form or a single thing is just a thing, but a man has skill to use it as for something. For example, in the picture, a tree is a tree. But when a man cuts a tree and made it as a wood, then that tree and that wood would be a symbol and used and created as a chair. Number 7, culture is shared by the members of society. The patterns of learned behavior and the results of behavior are possessed not by 1 or few percent, but usually by a large proportion of people. Thus, many millions of persons share such behavior patterns as Christianity when we speak of religion. Persons may share some part of a culture unequally. For example, as Americans do the Christian religion, there are some people in Christianity predominating ideas in life. To others, it is less preoccupying or unimportant, and still others it is of marginal significance only. Number 8, culture is superorganic. Culture is sometimes called superorganic. It implies that culture is somehow superior to nature. The word superorganic is useful when it implies that what may be a different phenomenon from a cultural point of view. For example, a tree means different things to the botanist who studies it and to the people who uses it for shade in the late summer afternoon. Number 9, culture is pervasive. Culture is pervasive. It touches every aspect of life. The pervasiveness of culture is manifest in 2 ways. First, culture provides an unquestioned context within individual action and response take place. Second, culture pervades social activities and institutions. According to Ruth Benedict, a culture is like an individual, is a more or less consistent of pattern of thought and action. Number 10, culture is a way of life. Culture means simply the way of life of a people or their design for living. A culture is historically derived system of explicit and implicit designs for living, which tends to be shared by all, specially designed members of group. For example, here in our country, in which the most common way of life of our culture is having fiesta in different parts of the places here in our country. Number 11, culture is a human product. Culture is not a force operating by itself independent of the human actors. There is an unconscious tendency to defy culture, to undo it with life and treat it as a thing. So, culture is a creation of society in interaction and depends for its existence upon the continuance of society. In a strict sense, therefore, culture does not do anything on its own. It does not cause the individual to act in a particular way, nor does it make the normal individual into maladjusted one. Culture, in short, is a human product. It is not independently endowed with life. Number 12, culture is idealistic. Culture embodies the ideas and norms of a group. It is sum total of the ideal patterns and norms of behavior of a group. Culture consists of the intellectual, artistic, and social ideals and institutions which the members of the society profess and to which they strive to confirm. Number 13. Culture is transmitted among members of society. The cultural ways are learned by persons from persons. So, many of them are handed down by one's elders, or by parents, teachers, and others. So, when we speak of transmitted, it is generation to generation. For example, the styles of dress, political views, and the use of recent labor saving devices. One does not acquire a behavior pattern spontaneously. He learns it. That means someone teaches him and he learns. Much of the learning process both for the teacher and the learner. Culture is continually changing. There is one fundamental and inescapable attribute of culture, the fact of unending change. Some societies sometimes change slowly, and hence, in comparison to other societies, seem not to be changing at all. But they are changing, even though not obviously so, because we believe in a saying, change is the only permanent thing in this world. So we are open for changes, especially in the culture. Number 15. Culture is variable. Culture varies from society to society, group to group. Hence, we say culture of India or England. Further, culture varies from group to group within the same society. There are subcultures within a culture, cluster of patterns which are both related to general culture of the society and yet distinguishable from it are called subcultures. So when we say variable, it varies or differentiates. There are not they are not the same, or they have varied cultures in that particular area or society. 16. Culture is an integrated system. Culture possesses an order and system. Its various parts are integrated with each other, and any new element which is introduced is also integrated. When we speak of integrated, these are things or people that are brought together so that they live or work together. They're no longer apart or segregated. When something is integrated, it's united. Different things are now together, especially things that used to be apart. Last characteristic of culture is language is the chief vehicle of culture. Man lives not only in the present but also in the past and future. He is able to do this because he possesses language which transmits to him what was learned in the past and enables him to transmit the accumulated wisdom to the next generation. So when we speak of language, it is how we communicate, what we use, words we use, or how we understand each other. Although culture is transmitted in a variety of ways, language is one of the most important vehicles of perpetuating cultural patterns. Let us proceed now to the functions of culture. Among all groups of people, we find widely shared beliefs, norms, values, and preferences. Since culture seems to be a universal human phenomenon, it occurs naturally to wonder whether culture corresponds to any universal human needs. This curiosity raises the question of the functions of culture. First function we have is culture defines situation. Each culture has many tool cues which define each situation. It reveals whether one should prepare to fight, run, laugh, or make love. For example, suppose someone approaches you with the right hand outstretched at waist level. So, what does this mean? That he wishes to shake hands in friendly greeting. It's perfectly obvious that is to anyone familiar with our culture. Second function is culture defines attitudes, values, and goals. Each person learns in his culture of what is good, true, and beautiful. Attitudes, values, and goals are defined by the culture, while the individual normally learns them as unconsciously as he learns the language. So, attitude are tendencies to feel and act in certain ways. And when we say values, these are measures of goodness or desirability. For example, we value private property, government, and many other things and experience. So, goals are those attainments which our values define as worthy. For example, winning the race, gaining the affections of a particular girl if you are courting him or her, or becoming president of the firm. That's one of the goals of people or by you. By approving certain goals and ridiculing others, the culture channels individual ambitions. In these ways, culture determines the course of life. Number 3, culture defines myths, legends, and supernatural. Myths and legends are an important part of every culture. They may inspire, enforce effort and sacrifice, and bring comfort in bereavement. Whether they are true is sociologically unimportant. Ghosts are real to people who believe in them and who act upon his belief. We cannot understand the behavior of any group without knowing something of the myths, legends, and supernatural beliefs they hold. Myths and legends are powerful forces in groups of behavior. Sometimes, all of us might believe one myths and those legends, especially when we live in with our grandparents and elderly people, that they believe about legends, myths, and supernatural. Number 4, culture provides behavior patterns. The individual need not go through painful trial and error learning to know what foods can be eaten, of course without poisoning himself, or how to live among people without fear. He finds a ready-made set of patterns awaiting him, which he needs only to learn and follow. The culture maps out the path of matrimony. The individual does not have to wonder how one secures a mate. He knows the procedure defined by his culture. Let us proceed now to the culture and society. What are or is the relationship? The relationship between society, culture, and personality is stressed by Ralph Linton. A society is an organized group of individuals. A group is an organized group of learned responses. The individual is a living organism capable of independent thought, feeling, and action, but with his independence limited and his all resources profoundly modified by contact with the society and culture in which he develops. A society cannot exist apart from culture. Yes, of course, because culture does not exist without society, because society are groups of people, and the people will be the one who would execute culture. So a society is always made of persons and their groupings. So as I said a while ago, people carry and transmit culture. So they are the ones who transmit culture and use culture for their everyday life. One must always keep in mind the interdependence and the reciprocal relationship between culture and society. Each is distinguishable concept in which the patterning and organization of the whole is more important than any of the component parts. So society should not be left out with culture, and they always need to be together.